This week on the Virtual Skeptics. Bob rides the rails. His enigmatic smile is still just indigestion. And Tim hates Yahoo. And so do I. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. And just so you know, I'm going to go see Star Wars Friday morning at 8:30 in the morning. Because I know that's what everyone really cares about, is whether I'm going to see Star Wars or not. So, there you go.
I have no plans to see it.
Yeah. Yes? What? Okay, we got to stop now.
We're gonna see it.
Yes.
One way or the other. Yes.
Well, I mean, because I know you just watched the holiday special.
Right.
From 1978.
Yeah, that was not a good idea.
Which, you have to watch the new movie because it can't possibly do worse, right?
I think it's going to be like a cleanse. That's the idea.
It's going to be like eating kitty litter.
Okay.
Well, isn't that the different kind of cleanse?
Woo. Yeah. The clay one? Oh.
Is that one?
It's hideous, yes.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about, and it's bad, and let's never mention it again.
Yes, never going to mention it again. Hi, this is Virtual Skeptics. Thanks for watching.
I think I should point out in the pre-show there was a serious conversation about what the anti-Star Wars is. It was not decided, so if anyone on Twitter knows...
It's true. We're going to throw that out there. If you can name what the anti-Star Wars is in a movie form, then...
not in variety show form.
No, not in variety show form.
It may have B. Arthur in it, though. That's still
true. It could. And Golden Girls does not count. Okay, so...
God, that was bad.
Yes, I know. Let me introduce the guys that are on here with me. We've got Bob. This is Bob. Bob Blaskowitz. He is highest conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Skepticality contributor. And Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities, and contributor to Skepticality and Insight at skeptic.com. You see how I did that? I was going to say without an S, because I haven't said that in a long time.
Yeah, because you're tricky.
Because I'm tricky like that. So if you're watching and you want to somehow make our show better,
that's possible.
You can contribute in a few ways. First off, you can tweet with hashtag Virtual Skeptics. You can post on the YouTube comments, and you can use the Q&A app to ask a question. Now, the way that works, if you ask us a question and we answer the question, we can tag the video so people can find the answer later. So please only use that if it makes sense to do that. Thank you. Okay, so we give a couple things at the beginning of the show every week. Our trivia question. Unfortunately, Tim is not here this week. His internet decided to die on him at the last minute, and I blame Yahoo, because that's what we blame everything on here on.
Did he submit one on the doc, though?
Yes, he did. He did submit us a question. But I'm going to read it. I was explaining why I'm reading it. And
okay. It really sounded like you were just not going to read the question.
And also explaining why we're blaming Yahoo.
Yes, we blame Yahoo because we do not count on any of their technology. We do not blame things on technology that we count on. But the trivia question for this week, if you answer it, yay, is this. What is the name of the 35,000-year-old spirit channeled by J.Z. Knight of Tacoma, Washington?
Oh, there is none.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Is that the same guy from Knight Industries?
No. But
Handle cars?
I know this one.
Yeah.
You know this one. Okay, I didn't know this one.
And he speaks with a stupid accent.
Yeah? So Hasselhoff.
Basically, yes.
No. Oh, okay. The other thing is I got two videos behind me. If you can name those on one of those channels I mentioned for feedback, I will recognize your awesomeness. And we've got guesses coming in for the trivia question already. Can someone tweet that? Can you tweet that, Bob?
Well, I'm sure that they already got it. And my internet is really slow. In fact, I'm having a hard time bringing up my script at this point.
Well,
which is a problem.
Is this another thing that we're going to blame on Yahoo tonight? Because
this is absolutely Yahoo Docs.
Yes. We'll blame GeoCities for that one.
That's right.
Since it was the 20th anniversary of GeoCities the other day.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Did you ever have a GeoCities page?
I did.
What?
I thought that spinning logos were the hottest shit on the internet. And blink tags.
Blink links.
Blink tags in blink links, yes. Oh my God. And scrollers. Yeah. Remember those? Every page had text that would just scroll by. You had to watch it to read it. Yeah.
Yes.
Marquees or whatever you call them. Yep. So who's first this week?
The ancient times in the long ago.
The ancient times, yes. Back in the 1940s when the internet was young.
The Druids.
The Druids.
All right.
1840s?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm up. So in August.
You have your script? Because I waited. I tried to, waste
time. I got it.
There you go.
In August, the internet raged with mild interest when two Polish treasure hunters. Well, actually, it was a Pole and a German. It's good to see those two countries
go into the bar.
Was that two guys?
And so they announced
was that two guys, or was the German dancing?
So they're two treasure hunters. Why do I keep reading the script that's wrong? They announced that they discovered the whereabouts of a Nazi gold train in Lower Silesia. This is a region of Germany that was annexed by Poland after World War II. It's one of those regions that just kind of flips sides, given for each century. So Germany gets it for a century, then Poland gets it for a century, and they flip back and forth. The only problem, actually, with their announcement that they discovered this Nazi gold train was they did not actually produce a train, which was the first warning sign. Or any gold. They had some geophys that could be interpreted, geophysics, I think thermal imaging and magnetic resistance imaging. But that was it. They just they said that they found a large anomaly, and then they were naming the different types of sleeper cars that they said they could see. So it's Peter Joker. Turrets, gun turrets, and stuff.
Gun turrets?
Yeah. So Piotr Joper, which is probably how you pronounce it, Polish construction company owner, and the unbelievably appropriately named German geologist Andreas Richter. You could only make it better
to do with the scale.
If you called him Santa Andreas Richter. Then it would be like the perfect geologist name. But they both claimed in August and September that they had irrefutable proof. That's warning sign number 2. That the train was buried outside of Wałbrzych.
Wait. Buried train.
A buried train.
Okay.
Buried train.
I'm just trying to think of what would be involved in burying a train.
Yeah. Well, run it into a tunnel and then seal the tunnel or something. But
fine.
Yeah, the whole thing seems a little daft, but whatever. On Tuesday, a group of researchers from Krakow University said that no, the anomalies are more likely to be a collapsed tunnel, and there's no evidence for the geophysical anomalies you'd expect if you had an entire train. Now, I haven't found evidence in English of the folklore that all the newspapers are referring to about a Silesian gold train between Wałbrzych and Breslau, which is now known as Wrocław. But I have no reason to doubt that there are such stories. There was a real gold train, and every so often you find something that the Nazis stashed somewhere. So there was a gold train in Hungary that was shipping things that had been looted from Jews. It was seized by the Americans, who badly botched the handling of it. And it looks like a lot of the rank and file soldiers liberated a lot of the art and jewelry and so on. There was a legal case against the U.S. in the past 10 or 15 years, which ended in money being dispensed to Jewish organizations as kind of reparation. So there was at least one gold train. So that there's precedent for this type of thing. But now that I think about it, the way that after the war, Russia blew through Silesia. They weren't interested in stopping. It was part of the big push, and so they went through, and then administrators showed up, and then they moved in the Poles. And what the Poles did was move everybody out of Silesia. All the Germans were deported, and then an entire new Polish population was imported. And it's one of these things that you don't really hear about, but I know about because I was a literary prostitute back in the day and wrote a memoir of somebody who lived in that area. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yep.
I am not going to ask.
Yeah, I was a.
He used to be called Maul Flanders, but that's
the damnedest.
neither here nor there.
Yes. So, it seems to me that the population who was there at the time was moved out after the war. So I don't know how much. I mean, there's a small enclave of people in Breslau, Wroclaw, but of Germans. But I'm not sure that anybody who was there really lasted to like an eyewitness or anything. I'm not sure that would actually be someone you'd expect to find. But whatever. The alleged discovery of the alleged train led to allegations that the train may have been carrying what remained of the famed Amber Room. This was a present from Prussia to Peter the Great in 1716, and one of the allegedly great unsolved mysteries of World War II. And so, like an easily distracted bloodhound, I began the trail of missing Russian treasures. So according to Soviet accounts in 1964, and you should be aware that in both Russia and Germany around the war, they tend to exaggerate their losses a little bit. So if you think about the bombing of Dresden, those numbers that were used in Slaughterhouse 5 that came from a Holocaust denier named David Irving, those numbers were what the propaganda ministry put out. The actual number was much, much lower. According to the Russians, in World War II, in just Russia, some 98,000 works of art and in some 57 Russian museums were lost. Of these, 72,000 burned or were blown up. 4,500 works were reported damaged, and the rest was presumably looted. That leaves about 21,500 works of art looted from Russian museums. Overall, about 20% of the art in Europe changed hands during the war, most of it from private collections, which is a big pain in the butt. So the enormous loss of this cultural material has led to much speculation about where it all went, and fewer bigger losses than the Amber Room. So it was last seen in Russian hands in 1941 near St. Petersburg. And while a lot of things were salvaged or were evacuated and shipped out ahead of the arrival of the Germans during Barbarossa, for some reason this room remained intact. And when we're talking about the room, we mean the furnishings and the wood paneling. Could you bring up an image, the first image?
Sure.
And this is what it looks like. What you have is, well, amber, the stuff that you make dinosaurs from.
I don't think that's...
Dinosaur DNA is in the mosquitoes trapped in the ant, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and behind it is gold leaf. All right? I'm sorry to bore you, but no. So it's extremely.
And I like the fancy Holland covers on the chairs.
I know. Those are made of purest cotton. Anyway, so
as far as you know,
yeah, who knows?
That's in case the amber drips on it.
Well, no. This was
the cherubs pee on it.
Well, that's true. The cherubs, they're known for that kind of thing.
They need pants. So, this is the original, and those wood paneling, all that wood paneling, it could be taken down. I think in total it was about 2 tons worth of paneling. So it was shipped off to Königsberg, and then it was stored in the castle there. And then this is where things start to get a little bit mythical, and then you can start to start unpacking kind of what happens to the Amber Room. So it was stored in the castle, and it was still there when the Russians were on their way. The Russians were coming. Right? And the common account is that the day after the Russians arrived, this German curator who was overseeing he was kind of guarding the crates that had the room in it. The day after the Russians arrived and he'd made contact with them and let them know what it was, the authorities were told the next day that Alfred Rode, the curator, his wife had both died of typhus, which was supposed to be sweeping through the city. But when the Russians followed up, they couldn't find Rhodes' body or his wife's body or the doctor who signed their death certificates. Oh, and also 2 tons of amber was missing. So yeah, the Amber Room passed from national treasure into the subject of endless speculation. According to Forbes, quote, down the years the theories have multiplied. Stalin? Did I say Stalin?
Stalin.
Jesus. Hey, Stalin!
Hey, Stalin!
All right, so Stalin actually had a second Amber Room, and the Germans stole a fake one. It was buried in a salt mine by the Gestapo, which was actually the actual fate of the Reichsbank's gold reserves, but who then killed the soldiers and moved it. Killed the soldiers who moved it and sealed them in. It was dismantled and sold in pieces to American soldiers, which is the story of the gold train, the Hungarian one. It's in the collection of a shadowy art dealer, Nazi group, ex-Soviet military cabal. A German investigator named Helmut Gnizl claims that former SS Gnizl, he's the Schnizzle, he's the Schnitzel, claims that former SS officers in Brazil have pointed to a silver mine south of Berlin. The mayor of a Lithuanian town in Neringa believes it's beneath a nearby lagoon. So there are all sorts of...
Are they saying the gold might be in a silver mine? I see a problem with that as a hiding place.
It's true.
Sorry.
May I continue?
Sure.
No.
The Amber Room even has, like Tutankhamun's treasure, a death curse associated with it. So people who are people who come into contact with it, they die in mysterious ways.
Oh my God.
Right? Okay. Yeah, I know. It's interesting that a couple of bits of the Amber Room have shown up. In 1997, after German police received a tip-off from former Stasi members that there was a lawyer who was trying to sell a mosaic that was supposedly part of the Amber Room. And it turned out it was the real deal. The seller was the son of a deceased Wehrmacht soldier, and he didn't know where his dad had gotten it, although I believe that there was a photograph of the father who was in a military transport company, a picture of him outside St. Petersburg. That's where he got it. So he was probably one of the people who shipped it back, and he picked up a little present. At about the same time, another piece surfaced. It was when they were covering this story, and there was a photograph of the room. A woman recognized the chest of drawers that she bought from the Stasi in the 70s. So, and that turned out to be the real deal as well. So some people were thinking, well, maybe it's maybe the Stasi has it. In fact,
the Stasi have thrift sales.
I don't know how that happened. I don't know what that. That's what the article said.
Okay.
They needed some money.
We needed some money. I was young. Okay, so in 2004, the going through this. Pardon me.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, sometimes when I read in class, I start to read and I yawn. Mm-hmm. And it's like looking into the sun and sneezing, which I hear people do weirdly.
I have not heard that one.
Yeah, no, look it up. After the show, pay attention. So, in 2004, there were some investigative reporters who looked into, well, let's see what happened to the Amber Room. And they found in KGB files and Stasi files some 180,000 Stasi files on this. They suspect that the Amber Room was destroyed by, wait for it, the Red Army. It was in the Königsberg Castle, and when they attacked the city and attacked the castle burned. That's where the hoard was kept, and there have been other people said that they saw this, burnt mess. It may not have been publicized because it would have meant that one of Jesus criminy, Joe's people would have to tell the big guy that they destroyed a national treasure. I don't think he wanted to do that to Stalin.
Or Stalin.
Stalin, he was the bad one. For this reason, I find the possibility that the Amber Room was aboard the imaginary train very slim indeed. That's what I got. It ended there. I am done now.
So, at one point, the Amber Room was like in a flat pack?
Yep, pretty much.
Has anyone checked the Swedes? Like IKEA Amber Room.
Oh. Yeah, but it's named Liam now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure was. And it was on display and everything during the war. Yeah, it was a...
Has anyone suggested aliens?
Not yet, Eve. But
I'm disappointed. So this photograph is from when?
It'd be from the 30s, I think.
Yeah. Where was it then? Is it the original?
It was outside St.
Petersburg. That was before the war,
yeah. Yeah, it was in its original location.
Has anyone ever noticed that it's completely, totally hideous?
I know, it's the taggiest place on Earth.
It's not about the aesthetic style. It's more about what the components are made of.
I think that
a lump of gold that is in the shape of something hideous is still a lump of gold. So.
It's true.
And amber can still make dinosaurs.
What? Yes, it can.
He wasn't even listening to himself.
To myself, yeah. I'm having a tough time here, people. Yeah.
No, it's interesting stuff. And Pierre Cloutier has been paying attention. He's been commenting in the Q&A, which,
Yes.
I'm going to let it slide that he was, making statements.
We're lucky to have anybody watching at all, Brian.
Yeah.
Hush you. He made a couple of comments here. He says, actually somewhere between 10 and 20% of the German population of Silesia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Silesia. Managed to stay, although at least 80% of the population was forcibly deported in a fit of ethnic cleansing. And do you know?
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was an orgy of ethnic cleansing. And you don't hear a lot about it. A lot of people died on the trip out. It was nasty.
Wow. And he also made a speculation about says here, suspect the Amber Room was destroyed in the siege of Königsberg. As for the missing bodies, a lot of the civilians were killed in the siege and their bodies missing. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, People disappearing during war happens all the time. Yeah, totally.
Of course. Of course. So there you go. Thank you, Pierre Cloutier, which I like saying his name. He's a regular.
I'm sure he likes hearing it like that, too. Just Stalin would enjoy if he were watching.
Stalin. I just, I'm going to say it that way. I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly, but I'm going to say it that way.
Stalin. I can't believe I did that. I did my dissertation on World War II. It's like calling him Hitler. It's just. Oh,
I thought it was Mr. Hilter.
Mr. Hilter, yes.
Mr. Hilter. Okay, thanks, Bob. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I only yawned twice. God. But you yawned once, so there you go.
It's true.
So, no more comments that I can see. Next up, Eve's got stuff.
Yeah, I have stuff.
Yeah.
Well, for a variety of strange reasons that even I do not entirely understand, I've been thinking lately about attempts to diagnose the long dead, beyond concluding that they're dead, because that's fairly safe.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever read Doubtful News? People get it wrong all the time.
I said long dead.
Oh.
Yeah. Like at least more than 100 years.
Elvis
hasn't been dead 100 years.
That's true. He hasn't been dead 100 years.
He's not dead yet.
Exactly. And I'm also not talking about instances where experts have studied skeletal remains or mummies or other sort of human remains and have discovered, evidence of injury, illness, poison, what have you. So I'm talking about making a diagnosis based not on physical evidence, but historical or documentary evidence in some way. And sometimes it can work fairly well. So, for instance, when Richard III's skeleton was discovered recently, it was found definitively that he had scoliosis, but he was not a hunchback, he didn't have a withered arm, he wasn't lame. But that really wasn't actually a surprise to historians who had assumed for quite some time that he wasn't a hunchback, didn't have a withered arm, and wasn't lame, but may have had some sort of skeletal unusualness. But historians.
Is that the politically correct term?
I don't know. I'm just sure deformity. Scoliosis.
It's a disease.
Yeah. Well, and it's a skeletal
condition. He has a condition.
Malformation, unusual formation. Anyway, but historians read
skeletal differences.
Yes, he was spinally
exceptional,
challenged. But historians were pretty sure that the extreme descriptions of his supposed deformities were based on hyperbole and propaganda, and in the most famous case, Shakespeare's play, just writing an interesting character. But historical diagnoses aren't always so neat. Just a couple of days ago, I read an article that argued that George Washington died as a result of epiglottitis, which would be an extreme inflammation of the epiglottis.
Oh.
But there seem to be many other competing theories. Last week, during book time, I read an excerpt from Ale Saga. Based on information from this saga, scholar Jesse Byock has argued that Ale may have suffered from Paget's disease of the bone, which is actually a better argument than you might think, considering that sagas are sort of historical fiction. Mm. But it is a better argument than just that brief description makes it sound. Earlier this year, a couple of medical researchers wrote an article about an early 13th century scribe known as the Tremulous Hand of Worcester. Now, again, it's not too hard to diagnose the fact that he had a tremor, hence his name. But they tried to decide exactly what kind of tremor he had or what caused his tremor. based solely on his handwriting. And last week, when I was looking into claims that there's a whole other portrait underneath the Mona Lisa, I found a number of articles which diagnosed the sitter of the painting with various ailments. If you could bring up the first slide, just in case anyone doesn't remember what the Mona Lisa looks like, there she is.
That's not.
I know it's a little known painting. I thought we should give it some.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the one underneath of it.
Yeah. One medical explanation given for her smile is that she suffered from Bell's palsy, probably associated with pregnancy. Bell's palsy is an idiopathic temporary partial paralysis of the face. It only affects one side. This explanation was first offered by K.K. Adur in 1989, and I couldn't actually get that paper, but the abstract states the Mona Lisa smile is presented as a possible example of facial muscle contracture that develops after Bell's palsy when the facial nerve has undergone partial Wallerian degeneration and has regenerated. The accompanying synkinesis would explain many of the known facts surrounding the painting and is a classic example of Leonardo da Vinci as the compulsive anatomist who combined art and science. Yeah, well, it gets more interesting.
Well, I mean, it certainly sounds pretentious.
Yeah, I know. Isn't someone trying to... Yeah.
Clearly, that is because she has this thing that I can explain in 10 million words.
Well, just remember, he says possible example.
Yeah, well.
W.J. Maloney, on the other hand, repeats the argument in an article in a dentistry journal, without apparently adding anything substantive to Ador's work, except some apocryphal stories about Leonardo, presented as factual. And these are drawn from a source whose author is listed in the work cited as no authors listed. It comes from the Museum of Science and is completely unsourced. The only other addition is a sense of smug certainty. So Mr. Maloney, or Dr. Maloney, claims all modern evidence clearly points to a very simple answer to the riddle that never was. The enigmatic smile is merely the artist's rendering. Enigmatic, Stalin. The enigmatic smile is merely the artist's rendering of the new mother's smile having been affected by Bell's palsy during her recent pregnancy. Leonardo is not jesting with the viewer of the portrait. Contrarily and ironically, his uncanny ability to represent the human form as it presents to him has caused scholars to postulate as to its terrible writing, as to the nature of the model's
peculiar smile. In English.
Yeah. Theories have ranged from the plausible to the ludicrous. The one fatal flaw that all had in common was to assume that Leonardo had placed some deep enigmatic message in the model's smile.
Or it could just be a freaking painting.
Oh, or she's smiling.
Oh.
Kinda.
No,
yeah.
It's a painting. Who cares?
Yeah. There have also been sort of scientific considerations, sort of on optics, on why different people perceive the smile differently. Which I haven't read all those, but which is potentially interesting and seems like it could be valid. That she looks like she's smiling more if you look at her, if you're not looking at the smile directly, like if you're looking at her eyes. Anyway. Another scientific article has argued that the smile hides missing teeth. There are also a few articles.
Why?
Why does it have to?
Because she's not showing her teeth, presumably. I didn't read that. But there are also a few articles that focus on specific features of the Mona Lisa. If you could bring up the next slide. There is a spot next to her left eye which is sometimes identified as her right eye, never mind. This is described as yellowish.
An eye booger?
Yellowish and
it's a Doctor Who monster.
Yeah.
No.
Also, if you can go to the next slide, there is a slight lump on her right hand. Although, is it a lump or is it just sort of the fold? Where the thumb and hand meet. Yeah, a sort of fleshy little fold. Regardless, Jan de Kekker et al. In one paper and Lev Osa in another have identified the mark by the eye as and this is going to be fun for me to pronounce, as a xanthelasma, a yellowish deposit of fat under the skin.
She practiced that for days and days. Yeah, I'm so proud of her.
So, yellowish deposit of fat under the skin, usually near the eye, and the hand lump as a lipoma, which is a fat tumor. Based on these symptoms, they've suggested that she may have suffered from hyperlipidemia, which is excess fat, due to one disease or another. I won't go into the details, the candidates, but there's a suggestion that it might have been a cardiac ailment because, fats and lipids. Both the articles I read say more than once that Lisa Gherardini, or Lisa del Giocondo, died at the age of 37 in 1516. She did not. She died in 1542 when she was 63, which is a slight difference.
That's a problem.
Yeah. De Kekker also identifies her husband as a marchese, which is an aristocrat. He wasn't. He was a moderately successful silk merchant. These theories depend on the spot and the lump being original also. The articles say that infrared photography performed in 1974 shows the spot by the eye is original, which may be questionable. It's an old study. There have been more studies have done much more recently. And also, there are other Mona Lisas. Now, some of these are of questionable provenance. The last week, there have been many stories about a Mona Lisa, a new Mona Lisa in Russia that could be the real one. But the BBC documentary I discussed last week has testimony from a scientist who ran chemical analyses of the paint, and based on that, it's a 17th century French copy. But even copies give us an idea of what the original may have looked like in the past, and in addition, some of the other Mona Lisas, at least one, seem to have come from Leonardo's studio, which is to say painted by his students, possibly at the same time. And from what I can tell, the spot doesn't seem to be visible on any of those. And while the reconstruction I discussed last week, based on peeling the layers of the paint like an onion,
nice.
Is kind of
good callback there. That was good.
Yeah. The spot doesn't seem to be visible on that computer-aided reconstruction either. Although it may be there on the unreconstructed layers, because I have seen that documentary now, but I had difficulty telling, to be honest. The hand lump is visible, at least to some degree in other versions, but can we really say that it's a lipoma, and can we say that the spot is what it's supposed to be?
Ancient alien implant.
Yeah. And even if it is, can we make general statements about Lisa's health based on them? Also, why would Leonardo have painted these flaws specifically? De Kekker suggests the influence of Flemish painters such as Jan van Eyck. He says specifically, visual arts, particularly of the Flemish school, in combination with the historical documentation of sitters, have been an important tool for paleopathologic research and a tool for learning observational acuity in rheumatology. He then lists several several examples with references. Now, if you go to the next slide, I've highlighted these references.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he is
Wow.
the author, the sole or corresponding author on all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's academic inbreeding, is what that is. Wow.
Dekecker also mentions.
Well, I mean, they got to do something, right?
Yeah. That
they're just bored.
Yeah. There's the other
Erasmus has rheumatism.
Probably because rheumatism can be almost anything. I mean, rheumatism, anything having to do with the joints, just about can be.
Polymyalgia. Arthritis. Neat.
Yeah, I have to say, some of these authors, another thing about them is, like the Bell's palsy one. You look at their publications, and it writes a lot of things about Bell's palsy, and that's true of the other one on the spot and the hand.
So not so much about art.
Well, yeah, but it also seems it's sort of like they're hyper focused on something and go, ha ha.
Well, I mean, I don't want to defend these guys, but I mean, if they're using old art as some kind of window into the past and try to figure out what it might mean, I mean, it's one thing.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm sure it's probably valid.
History is a hard thing. So.
When particularly if they're paintings of people who aren't idealized, which I'll get to in a minute, that you may be able to see something diagnosable. Dekecker also mentions that there's controversy over just who the model of the painting is. He says alternative hypotheses include Isabella d'Este, or mistress of Giuliano de' Medici, or of Leonardo himself. It has also been suggested that the woman portrayed by Leonardo represents the ideal woman, or even an adolescent boy dressed as a woman, or that the painting is possibly a self-portrait. Regardless of the identity of the model, and we do know, by the way, for sure that Leonardo did paint Lisa Gherardini, although whether what we see is actually that portrait is still somewhat controversial. But it seems wise to consider that the completed painting may not entirely represent what she or he, but she, actually looked like. So let us consider for just a moment some of Leonardo's other paintings, such as the next slide is The Virgin and Child with St. Anne. Now, to me, both women in this painting look a wee bit like the Mona Lisa, kind of a family resemblance. And then the next slide is a painting of St. John the Baptist. This is thought to be, the model is thought to be Leonardo's student and companion Salai, known as Salai. And again, there's a significant similarity. And it's not difficult to find detailed comparisons between the dimensions of the Mona Lisa's face and that of aged, bearded Leonardo in drawings that he did, or others did, I guess self-portraits specifically. And the words golden ratio may come up quite a bit. So I'm not saying
wonder what she's pointing at.
God.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I think it's something on the ceiling.
Look at this booger.
Wait.
Just kicked it out of Lisa's eye.
Gesture.
That's a man. That's St. John.
Okay.
Leon's.
Yeah.
Fine.
And yes, he's probably pointing something gaudy because
that's what they do.
Precursor. The one who comes after me, something like that.
Oh, okay. I thought clearly he has a look on his face like he's doing a practical joke. So.
Yeah. Hey God, pull my finger. So I'm not saying all these works are based on the same model. I don't think they are.
Oh, this show is so vulgar.
Yeah. But I think it is safe to say that Leonardo had a type. A painting is not a photograph. and it's unlikely, as Maloney states so positively, that the Mona Lisa is purely an accurate representation.
Really?
There's more to art than the accurate representation of physical ailments, even when the artist is scientifically adept. And it may be dangerous, therefore, to diagnose the subjects of Italian Renaissance masterpieces based on this.
So while you were doing you're done, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounded like you were done.
Yeah,
I just
I'm done.
wanted to try a little experiment. I drew a woman from my memory,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering if you could try to diagnose, what she might be wrong with her, based on what you've learned with reading all that.
All right.
Stuff.
Sure.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Hang on.
Let me see.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I think I've
That was
figured out
way
what's wrong
funnier
with
in my
you,
head.
however.
Yeah.
It's way funnier.
Yes,
in my
her tongue is transparent.
head. That's true. She had transparent tongue syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, I found that interesting, even though I was, making.
It's surprising at how badly people want to diagnose every historical character.
Do you think that there are a lot of academics that have to find something to do?
Something new, some new angle.
Well,
I mean, they have to do a lot of writing, and some maybe they have only certain things they're interested in, and they just write based on what they find
the other
interesting.
thing is, the Mona Lisa attracts, I don't want to say cranks, but it attracts people the way Shakespeare does. That everyone has their theory about the Mona Lisa. Everyone has their theory about Shakespeare. And I think Leonardo also attracts scientists who like the art because of his scientific pursuits. Yeah. Despite the fact that, as far as I know, none of his inventions actually worked or came to fruition, at least in his own life, were ever built.
No, maybe not his machines, but some of his simple machines. Some of his simple machines were.
Yeah, he did some interesting demos, but he didn't deliver any of his applications.
Yeah, and and then also
that was funny.
And then also, of course, the fact that he did do so many anatomical drawings and things like that, I think also may attract doctors or medical researchers. But his anatomical drawings aren't exactly the same thing as his paintings that were made commercially. And if you're going to diagnose Renaissance people, look at the Virgin in Michelangelo's Pietà. She has ridiculously long arm-itis.
And that was my first thought.
It was a scourge back then.
Yeah.
It was carried by fleas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my first thought.
She's younger than her son, so.
I just like the idea of it's like Dr. House is walking through the gallery going,
"It's not lupus.
It's not lupus. It's not lupus. It's not lupus." Did you try the medicine drug? I tried the medicine drug. Only an idiot would try the medicine drug.
Yep. No.
Oh, that's funny. Yay.
Well, we amuse ourselves here.
Totally. This is what it's all about, people.
Thanks. That was interesting. I've got a couple of quickies to throw in for the update everyone is terrified of, actually. This one, actually, Bob forwarded this one to me on Twitter earlier this week. An MIT computer passes a, quote, visual Turing test. Now, if you guys don't know what the Turing test is, Alan Turing was one of the pioneers in computing, came up with this idea of how you would possibly test a computer to see if it had human-like intelligence. And it's a simple idea. The idea is that you could somehow interview whatever it is you're interviewing in a way that you couldn't tell the difference between it being a computer responding or a person responding. And unfortunately, that is incredibly nebulous and has been kind of twisted in a lot of different ways, especially recently, because there's been a lot of attention given to both robotics and computer intelligence, with some successes. Like everybody's, well, many people have seen Watson win Jeopardy, IBM's computer, and they know about Siri, and they know about some of the other technologies that are computer clusters that are doing very interesting things practically nowadays. Well, I think the term in the context of this this MIT computer system is kind of used lightly. It's a headline. It's catchy. But let me explain what this guy did. Now, this is a PhD dissertation project. A guy named Brendan Lake, who goes to MIT, did his PhD on a particular idea in cognitive science and AI. The idea was to try to come up with a computer system that can learn in a way that humans learn. And learning systems are pretty common nowadays, but usually they require a huge amount of computing power and a lot of training, like Watson or like Siri or like these other systems that do big searches. They have been trained over a long period of time with a lot of data, a lot of patterns being pushed into them, so that if they eventually build up to the point where you can ask it a question and it'll use its pattern matching on a very large database and come up with something that's somewhat useful. He not only wrote about this in a paper which I don't have access to, but hopefully somebody can find it, because this sounds really cool. He developed a system that can look at a few examples of writing, and based on those, come up with possible guesses for what a writing might look like. So it's given examples of characters from a particular language, and I think it's a couple of different ways this is done. And then the computer will be asked, okay, can you come up with some characters that would possibly look like a language? And it did this. And then they also asked the same questions to students that were volunteers from MIT, and then compared the two. And it was pretty hard to determine whether the results are different between what the computer did and what humans did. So that's what they're saying. That was kind of like a Turing test. They were under certain conditions with certain amounts of input. The output that they got was indiscernible from a human response, and it worked in that one case. Yeah. It doesn't sound all that impressive, but I'm sure that I mean, the guy, he won a prize for this. Let me look for the name here. Glushko Prize, which is a cognitive science prize. It's like
the glucose prize. He just got a cube of sugar.
They didn't award him a donut. They awarded him $10,000.
That's a lot of donuts.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently, there's only like 10 of these prizes given out every year, which is, I mean, that's a lot, but it means that he's made significant progress and impressed somebody with this particular approach. So let's see if this gets applied to something interesting in the coming years. But don't really know how this applies to our eventual, path towards what we think
be able to forge
AI.
checks.
I don't know. I mean, it's claimed to be a good first example of a computer learning concepts, which is the big jump. I mean, one of the big jumps that humans are very good at is being able to learn from a few examples and then try to come up with an idea of what that means. You see a few things and you're like, oh, well, that means I can do this, this, this. So they can understand the concept of something they've seen and then produce something based on that concept. So it's supposed to be like that. Like I said, I didn't read the paper. I don't have access to it, but it's interesting. It's got potential. Whether it's going to kill us someday, maybe, but it's something to look out for. So, remember that guy?
Wow, humans, they tear
I know.
easily. Ooh.
Yes. So it's very interesting, and I mean, it's from a skeptical point of view, yes, it's another headline that's using the buzzwords to draw attention to itself, even though the actual content is quite subtle and maybe interesting, but not really what it's saying it is. So there you go.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing is be afraid, be very afraid. AI is coming and it's going to kill you, or it's going to do something really bad. Elon Musk says so. If you guys have been following, yeah,
he's like Tesla.
Well, I mean, he runs a successful company that depends upon science to succeed. He's a businessman, but he's also quite smart. I don't really know what his technical expertise is, but I don't think it's in computer software or AI. But he and some other big thinkers have been talking a lot about AI recently, because with some successes, like the ones I mentioned before, like Watson and Siri and these big deep learning machines is actually the terminology they're using. That people think that's going to be a natural progression. We'll eventually get to a point in the near future where these machines can do much, much more, make decisions for us, maybe possibly control things. And we need to start thinking now. That's the idea, is we need to start thinking now about how do we build these machines so that they don't do things that are bad. And yeah, we've all seen at least one sci-fi movie that where a computer is killing humans or goes crazy, or some kind of technology threatens humans. But the primary concern is not a computer that becomes aware and starts killing humans. It's more in terms of a computer is in control of some system and is designed to make that system work very, very well in very limited terms, and because it can think on its own, could potentially optimize that system to the point where it's doing some kind of side effect it doesn't know or care about. And that side effect has a very bad effect on humanity, or on human life, or on the or environment, for example.
Can you give us a solid example of that?
Let's say there's a machine that is in charge of making automobiles or something, or making some kind of product. And it figures out a way to make that incredibly efficient, incredibly fast, and is going off the rails, producing these things to the point that it starts just spitting things out, uses up all the resources to build these things, or produces a whole bunch of side effects like gases exposed or chemicals exposed, who knows, or maybe just because it has an effect on the market. Maybe it floods the market and no one wants these things. But there's all these, it's I don't know. There's all kinds of examples you can think of where a computer is not actually going to go and kill people, but it could possibly be control of something. Like let's see, a computer that maybe there's a computer that controls power distribution in the country. I mean, that would be a very good first problem for an intelligent system to handle. So it could optimize both for power production and for distribution, and ensure that it is evenly and reliably distributed everywhere. Now, it could potentially make decisions on how that system is run so that the overall distribution is working well, but it has to sacrifice something to keep it working, or it has to...
like Alabama?
Yeah, or I mean, there's all kinds of things you can think that it would affect humans in such a way. I don't know. Mm-hmm. The point is that there are things other than killbots that would have bad effects on human society.
These would be oops bots.
Well, to that end, a bunch of smart people, none of who have names you probably know, have formed a nonprofit open organization called OpenAI. One of the board members is Elon Musk, and there's a group of people and organizations, including Amazon and a company called Infosys, if you know who that is, who have gotten about $1 billion together to start doing AI research from the point of view of making sure that the technology is both safe and good for us. And hoping that because we're starting now to think about these problems, that we will produce AI that is beneficial and good.
Can't we just invent AI to think of these things for us?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge conflict of interest, don't you?
Well, what's AI going to spend $1 billion on?
Well, the humans will spend $1 billion to make sure the AI will kill us in the most efficient way possible.
Well, no, I meant if we put the AI in charge of deciding how that money should be.
Yeah,
we'll just blow it all on donuts.
That would be one way of benefiting humanity. $1 billion of donuts.
Yum.
Okay, then. And since, we've got that thing, one other minor thing is apparently Facebook is on the AI bandwagon. They've recently announced that they're building this huge AI like research and development bunker, not bunker, but they're putting together a high-end computer system to do AI research. Luckily, now, no doubt they've got a huge data set that we've all volunteered to give them that they could possibly do some really interesting AI experiments with. But the one thing that's different between them and like Google's been doing this for a long time is that they're going to publish what they're doing. They're going to publish the hardware configurations they're using, and a lot of the experiments are going to be papers that are going to be publicly available. So it's a little not evil, but still.
Which one, Google or Facebook?
Facebook is the one that's going to be open about this, and Google's been a little bit tight-lipped about it.
Didn't Google recently release open source AI? I thought they had.
They have some tools that are open, but their hardware configuration, like
I see what you're
stuff,
saying,
is not. So, yeah. There are tool sets and they have tons and tons of tool sets that they build and say, hey.
But you're talking about the infrastructure that they don't want us to know how it works.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's so much that they don't want us to know about it. It's more of a proprietary. We're using this. This is our business model type stuff. So
we don't want you to know about it.
We don't want you to be able to build the same thing we built right now, but you can have the tools.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, you could go build it yourself if you want, but we're not. Not going to tell you how.
They could give that to me, and I would just words.
So there you go. Facebook is not as evil as you thought. OpenAI is going to save us from the robot apocalypse, and MIT is still desperately trying to create computers that will kill us. There you go. That's the robot apocalypse update for this week. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, and we're over time, so we did really good. Doing a full show. Full show. Thank you everybody for watching, and let's do the wrap up. We did a trivia question earlier. The trivia question was as follows: what is the name of the 35,000-year-old spirit channeled by J.Z. Knight of Tacoma, Washington? And almost immediately we got one response, which was wrong, and then we got another response from the same person that was right. Yay!
Yay!
So the answer was Ramtha. I think that's how you... Ramtha?
The dumbest.
I know. Ramtha. Ramtha. Rumpa-pum-pum.
And it's so incredibly unconvincing.
Oh my god. And how Ramtha has a bad modern Indian accent being 35,000 years old. There's just nothing...
And speaks English.
And speaks English.
Modern English.
And sometimes gets drunk and starts insulting people.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. She has such issues.
Yep. And also can sing I Will Melt With You. That was a modern English joke.
Yeah.
Never mind. That was Pierre Cloutier, which I like saying his name, so I'm going to say it again. Pierre Cloutier. Thank you for playing.
I should mention DJ Grothy also got it.
He did.
And he did. He didn't have the hashtag, but and Ben Bradley got it.
That's why I missed it. Yeah, Ben Bradley got it too, but I think Pierre was first.
First. But.
And we got just now. I got a couple of guesses on the videos. One guess was that they're both Star Wars. Well, that's technically true, but only technically true. And that was he changed his name on his Twitter handle, so it's oh my God. The Crazy Dwarf is his handle, and I don't know what it says. Ad MQ Eard, and I can't read it. I'm sorry. But Nathan also just guessed, and he got one of them right. He said the left video is Force Awakens. Yes, the left video is the trailer, one of the many trailers for the new Star Wars movie that's coming out this weekend, which I'm going to see Friday at 8:30 in the morning.
Instead of going to work.
Well, you know, I
work.
Yeah, work. And he says the right has 3PO and R2, but I don't recognize the saint. That's right, because only those of us that like to inflict pain upon ourselves have seen the video that's playing.
Masochists.
I got this one, by the way.
Yes, and they, because you guys just watched it like yesterday, right? Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the 1978 Star Wars holiday TV special. It's an hour and 38 minutes long, and it's not even on repeat. I just started playing it, and it's been playing the entire show. So
yeah, it's like being skinned alive.
It is pretty.
But
horrible.
Not quite as pleasant.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Skin alive. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there you go. I give both of you half credit. Ding ding
Wow.
ding.
You'll be able to buy power converters.
Yes.
And no one apparently came up with it.
What is the power converter?
Did anyone come up with the anti-Star Wars?
No, I don't think anybody came up with the anti-Star Wars. I need an
We're
anti-Star Wars.
disappointed in you.
I know.
Yeah.
We're not angry.
Anti-Star Wars. So it's the one that spins, like Bob said, it spins down. We have some announcements, and then we're gonna do book time. First announcement is there's no show next week.
Right.
None of us want to do a show on the day before Christmas Eve. Or is it no?
Some of us
it's
are
the
traveling.
23rd. Yeah, we're traveling. And various other holiday-related things. Everybody who's doing a holiday thing, have a great holiday thing. Also, there is a new Skepticality featuring a segment by Bob. Bob's on Skepticality this week. And Barbara has a new contribution to the Odds Must Be Crazy, which we'll link in the show notes.
The Odds Must Be Crazy segment on Skepticality.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, see, Echo's confused because Odds Must Be Crazy is also a blog, but is it not linked on that? No? Okay. So its new segment on Skepticality is called, yes, for Bob. So there you go. Those that. Who's got a book?
I have a book.
Do your book. I will draw some more.
Occasional outbreaks of group flagellation occurred among medieval laypeople during times of high social stress. One began in the mid-13th century in Italy following the plague of 1259. The Umbrian hermit Raniero Fasani has been credited with organizing processions of disciplinati who whipped themselves in public. The practice of self-flagellation spread to other countries, but was prohibited by the Church in 1261. The anticipated world changes prophesied by Joachim of Florus also contributed to the flagellants' activities. Processions led by priests marched from town to town. When they arrived at a town, they would stand in the street or square in front of the church, flogging themselves for hours. Invariably, some townspeople would join the procession and swell its size, and as it moved on.
Okay. Bob?
My opponent believes that we should spend more on education. Do you know who else thinks that? the dictator himself, and there you go.
Holy mackerel! I have that book.
Well,
I have that book sitting right across the room from me right now. I almost used that one for this episode, but I had this other one that was also very entertaining. Okay, so in 1886, Atlanta, Georgia passed a short-lived law prohibiting the sale and/or manufacture of alcohol. In response, a pharmacist named John Pemberton created a faux wine, mixing together fruit flavors with extracts from cola nuts, caffeine, and coca leaves, cocaine. He dispensed it via soda fountains. At the time, carbonated water was believed to have a medicinal benefit, and with that, Coca-Cola was born. The original Coke formula had a significant amount of cocaine in it, but that was quickly stemmed and by 1903 or thereabouts eliminated from the recipe. This was done in part because the desired flavor can be extracted from the coca leaves, therefore removing the cocaine, setting the drug aside as a byproduct. To this day, Coca-Cola needs coca leaves to make its drink. As a Coke exec told New York Times, quote, ingredients from the coca leaf are used, but there is no cocaine in it, and it is tightly overseen by regulatory authorities. In fact, the United States and most other nations expressly prohibit the sale and trade of coca leaves. In order for Coca-Cola to continue to exist in its current form, the company has a special arrangement with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, allowing Coke to import dried coca leaves from Peru in huge quantities.
Are you kidding?
That's what it says. What was your book, Eve?
Encyclopedia of Heresies and Heretics by Chaz F. Clifton. And wait,
Chaz.
there's a picture. There's a picture of flatulence.
Flatulence?
No,
themselves.
Flagellance.
Self-flagellation.
Yes.
Eve is no oil painting.
It's true.
That's true. What's your book, Bob?
Mine's an illustrated book of bad arguments to learn the lost art of making sense by Ali Al-Masawi.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't read gone through that yet, but I picked up a cheap copy because it looked interesting. And
I just got it as a present from someone in my department.
Oh yeah, cool.
They know me so well.
Yes. Mine is a book called Now I Know: The Revealing Stories Behind the World's Most Interesting Facts by Dan Lewis, and it looks like this. And apparently there are 2 volumes of this, and it's got all kinds of interesting stories about odd things, including Coca-Cola, apparently. I found that very interesting. So, there you go. Also a book around the same lines, which I like these kind of things. So, that's our show, I guess. Is that our show? I'm watching the sand person knock Luke down on the screen behind me. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's going to enjoy the holidays, including the Star Wars holiday. Oh my God!
Wow.
The Star Wars holiday.
Speaking of heretics and heretics,
I'm
gonna get like burned in effigy or something.
Yeah. Wow.
So there you go. Enjoy Star Wars, that thing, and
enjoy your science fiction, people.
Enjoy your science. Yes. And and enjoy your holidays, and thanks for watching. Let me do this and then this. The Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of What'sTheHarm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself. I see this everywhere at Alpha News, and not Coca-Cola. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at SarahMayhew.com. Our theme music is by Musicant and Music Feature. This has been a LucasArts production. I'm kidding. It's not.
No, Disney will sue us!